Small Business Success Podcast. We're all about building brands for you to survive and developing you to thrive. Now, I know that seems like a really hard thing to do. The topic's going to be on mindset because that's the only way that we're going to get there. So welcome. I'm your host, Bonnie Bondeo. I appreciate you guys always being here. And for those of you that listen to my podcast and share it, please share it with other people. It's on Spotify, Anchor, Google Play, iTunes. And of course, if you are interested in being a guest, if you have some great perspective, I'd love to be able to have you as a guest on the show as well. So we're celebrating 80 episodes here. And today's episode is called Against the Wind. It seems like we're fighting everything anymore. I mean, does everything feel harder to you now? Have you lost your passion? Are you feeling stuck? Are you financially stagnant at this point? And certainly, you know, when we're working harder and we're not being able to reap the rewards or the benefits from the hard work, it feels imbalanced. And that then has this feeling of where, you know, what's the point? I'm feeling stuck right now. And then of course, with inflation as it is, you know, 8+%, any of those profits that we think we might be making are getting sucked up by the cost of everything else. So we're almost feeling financially stagnant too. Everything's costing more. And with everything costing more, we feel like we're going backwards. And then we keep questioning ourselves. Well, what's the point? What's the point? What's the point, right? Well, you're not alone. You're not alone. And there is some outlets that I want to share with you guys today. And certainly my podcast visions aren't overly planned out. It is more in the moment. It's more, what am I feeling? What may other people be feeling right now? It's some of the information that I hear from my clients of what they're struggling with or some successes that they've had. But it's very current. It's very in the moment, these podcasts here. And of course, you guys know that I kind of tie it around a sailing and a boating theme just to make it a little bit more fun and not have to take things so seriously here. And, you know, maybe you're educated on some points of view in business. Maybe you're educated on some points of view with analogies from other industries or other examples that you can kind of put things into perspective. When we say that you're, you know, going against the wind, it just feels like you're working twice as hard to get the same results. It feels like you're working really hard and maybe not being able to reap the rewards from it. It feels like you're working really hard and you're not making as much money as you are used to or had before, type of thing. So again, you're not alone in any of this. And there's two things I want to just get right off the bat. So if you only listen to this part of it, there's two things that can help you to be able to release some of this angst. And so, it has a little bit of further back space to it here. But what we know to be true is that if we withhold emotions, then emotions manifest internally. The whole idea of releasing sadness and anger and these type of emotions is to be able to have them be released and dissipate. Okay. Now, how we manage those emotions of sadness and anger coming out is the difference between somebody that's emotionally intelligent and somebody that is just expressing but not realizing the impact it has on others. So emotionally intelligent people understand the impact it has on others when they release such emotions as anger and sadness. And it's not to say you shouldn't be, you definitely should be, because if you look at kind of like a healing cycle or a grieving cycle, you know, it's shock. And this is the one I use. There are different versions out there, of course, but shock, denial, sadness, anger, hope. If you're not allowing yourself to get to sadness and anger, you go back into denial or shock. You can't believe the world is as it is right now. You can't believe inflation is so high. You can't believe the cost of gas. Okay. So you keep reverting back into shock. Or maybe you're going into denial. It's like, if things will get better. And typically they usually do get better, but going back into denial and not allowing yourself to express these emotions, like I'm angry, I'm sad the world is this way. I'm sad that things are happening the way they are. I'm angry that nothing seems to be getting done about it. I'm angry. And when you can release those emotions and get to the place of hope, it usually means that you now have some action that you can do in order to make yourself better, or make others better, or make the community better, or make society better, or make humanity better. Okay. And obviously that's on a very big scale. I really want to focus in on you and what you can do to make yourself feel better. So what I'm going to suggest is that you do express your emotions, and we just have to decide how we're going to express them. So 2 ways to be able to do that is to be able to speak your truth and acknowledge it out loud. Okay. So speak your truth. It could be to yourself, but you have to still do it out loud. It could be to your team, but and again, it has to be out loud. It could be to your family, or in some community setting or something like that. Now, I'm going to be very careful of how I say this. Your truth is based on what you believe, your beliefs, your values, what you think to be true for yourself. It's not always the truth. There's your truth and there's the truth. Okay. So, and that truth could be, based on laws, science, evolution, like all these other things. Okay. Spirituality, all these other things. But in order to be able to speak your truth and then acknowledge it out loud, I want you to be very careful of what you're putting on as truths, or what you're sharing, what you think is truths via social media. I also want you to be careful of, expressing yourself in a way that may not support you in that release of that emotion on, these social media sites. Because what happens sometimes is that people then just clamor back at you. And what you thought was just like a simple, I just needed to get that off my chest, I just needed to rant, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden it comes back and it's 10 times worse. And your anxiety is up, your anger is up, and then you feel again stuck by that emotion, and then you can't get through it to the place of hope where you're solving it for yourself. Okay. So speaking your truth and acknowledging out loud, but in a very emotionally intelligent way. Do I want to go on to social media and just like say things that are like, that's not how it works, or why are you even saying this, or who are you people? Yes. Yeah. All day long. But I really try very hard not to go on there, because in some people's world, it is their truth, and it's the way that they're speaking their truth, and they're acknowledging it in their way of doing it out loud. And it may make sense for them. Now, today in this topic though, of going against your wind, it is a mindset conversation. Okay. You have to figure out tools and strategies and ways that you can release these emotions in an emotionally intelligent way in your world, in your environment, in your society. Okay. And realize also the impact that it makes on other people. All right. So there's a part of it where you have to be vulnerable. If you're going to do it, there's a level of being vulnerable, but there's also a level of, you got to be honest with yourself. So if you're going to share something, are you sharing it because you want to blame somebody or point the finger outwards? Or are you sharing it and honest with yourself that it's like, I really haven't been managing this well, and I got to figure out better ways to be able to manage it? Or are you saying, this is my belief, I understand people have other beliefs? Are you sharing it with, I'm just one person and I can't make a difference? All right. And we know that's not true, right? We know that's not true, because if I ask you the question, do you believe that one person in the world can make a difference for the world? The answer is yes. But it also goes the other way. Do you believe that one person can make the world better or worse? Okay, so you could say, yes, they can make the world better. And you could also say that one person can make the world worse. All right, so you have to be able to trust that if you're going to put something out there, that you're doing it understanding the impact it has on others, or understanding the impact that it's going to come back to you with that. to be vulnerable and to be honest with yourself, but to be emotionally intelligent in what you're doing. And you guys, stop sharing bullshit. Okay. Seriously, that's like the one thing. And this doesn't have necessarily to do with business or even the small businesses or the salon business that I cater my time into, but stop sharing bullshit. All right. Just because you saw it or you've seen it, unless it's factual, unless it's something that can't be disputed in a sense, stop sharing it, because it's really making all of us have an enormous amount of anxiety that we don't need. So you have to be able to ask yourself the hard questions, or you have to be able to find and work with someone who will. So if you're not capable of bringing out the essence of your speaking your truth out loud, being vulnerable, and being honest with yourself, then find somebody to be able to work with to help you to do that. So whether that is a formality of, say, therapy or counseling, or if it's working with a business coach or some other type of coaching capacity, whatever, find the people that you can have that expression with so that you can get it out. And this kind of came up today because I actually had a session with a coach, and it was kind of a favor because I had done some things for her. And so in return, she was offering me an opportunity to be able to work with her on a couple of sessions. And I always like the idea of that, because even as a coach, I still need the support to be able to cleanse my palate, in a sense, to be able to help other people. If I see the same patterns happening with all of my clients, then am I caught up in those patterns and not able to find the solutions for them or help them get to their own solutions? So sometimes I need the coach and the support. And as a coach, I usually always have a coach at some point. There might be points of I'm not working with a coach directly right now, but I'm communicating or I'm finding those opportunities to be able to do that. So when you're against the wind, there's always more at risk, right? So if you look at it from a sailing term, if you're trying to sail against the wind, there's a lot more strategy to that. There's a lot more difficulty to that. And typically, if you're a sailboat with a motor, you're not putting the sails up against the wind because it's risky. You might just be motoring, and it doesn't mean that motoring against the wind is easier or that you're any less vulnerable in that state. Okay. But if it's the only way for you to get to your destination, if it's the only way to get to where you're trying to go, then you just have to have all of this awareness going on. So you need the experience, you need expertise of how to do this. You need to understand all your angles. So if there's a way to be able to still get to your destination and not go directly into the wind, then you're going to do that. If it means you're doing a zigzag pattern, like from a sailing perspective, then that's how you're going to get there. If it means being on a slight angle so that you're not, that your self or your boat or your business is being hit by the wind directly, then you're going to do it. You're going to shift, whether it's shifting systems, shifting, the way that you're doing business or opportunities, you're going to do that. You have to pay really close attention to what's going on around you, because this is when things break. All right. You got to map out maybe what you're trying to accomplish. So we're going to attempt to go directly into the wind in this particular approach to business or project. And if it starts to get too hard, or if it starts to put stress or strain on us, then we'll shift. Okay. You got to observe your gauges. So if you were on a boat and you were sailing, you'd pay attention very closely to your gauges. You'd also be paying attention to your surroundings. What's coming up? Are there islands coming up that I can tuck in a little bit closer and maybe not have the wind feel as direct on me, or stay out to sea a little bit, and take the more of the impact on there. I'm going to listen for cues. Okay. I'm going to watch for cues as well. So, I may not see an island out in my horizon, but all of a sudden the birds start showing up. And so I know we're closer to land because I see there's, more array of what those telltale signs are. Sometimes you need to feel the environment. So one of the things I learned when I was learning to sail was, to put your face into the wind. Where do you feel it? Do you feel it to this side? Do you feel it straight on? Turn your head and feel the wind. So from a business standpoint, maybe it's just being more intuitive to where you're at and what you're fighting for, what you're aiming for. Okay. And is it worth putting it all at risk with the approach that you're taking? Or can you pull back and maybe reassess what you need to do? Listen for cues, feel the environment, prepare for things to break. I said that earlier, but this is honestly, if you are forcing things and it is creating stress and strain and a more powerful impact on you, you have to prepare for things to break. So whether it's people, pushing people too hard and then eventually they break, then they aren't happy and then they leave you. Okay. So we have to look at these things. I think we all figured that out where, 2020 was just one of those years where we knew we needed to get back into the world, but maybe things weren't ready for us, but we were pushing ourselves to the limits. And then all of a sudden it was like, yeah, we don't need to be doing that anymore. But now we're in this kind of this like hesitant, vulnerable place of, do I step back in and jump back on, or is something else going to happen? We're like waiting for the other shoe to drop. We're like constantly walking on eggshells. And that's creating this ability to have anxiety be present more often. So now we're having to manage anxiety as we're going against the wind. We're having to be ultra focused on things, super diligent. And all of it narrows down to this one piece of, I have to do this to survive. So if you're pushing your business in certain areas, or maybe spending money in certain areas that you think is going to have a return on your investment or a greater impact, and it's not, you're doing it as a survival technique. And there's a point where you have to assess, is it working? Is it ideal? Is it the ultimate or the best approach of how I want to do this? Okay. Because everything, when you're against the wind, remember, puts you at risk. All right. So in all of this transition here, what it's doing is it's exposing the fear. So as I was working with this coach this morning and she was asking me questions, you always want to look good, even with a coach. Even I find this with my clients when they work with me, is that they want to share all the great things they've accomplished, their credentials, their list of acknowledgements and everything, but they're with me for a reason. And it takes a while to get to that point where they're willing to be vulnerable and expose these fears that they're up against. Okay. And then of course, how I handle it as a coach, or how others would handle it as a coach, is to be able to be really present and acknowledge what's going on. And then to allow them this space of vulnerability, because what they're doing is they're speaking their truth and they're saying it out loud. And a lot of times in this space, when we speak our truth and we say it out loud, we actually hear what we're saying. And then we realize the problem might be smaller than it is, or the problem might be bigger than we've been letting on to. We've been in denial, or we haven't expressed enough emotion to be able to say, I really need to take this seriously now. Okay. So then you have to, exposing the fears, you have to ask the questions. You have to now start getting into that directive mode, right? Where are you heading? What is the easiest and safest path for you to get there? Okay. And what's the timelines? Are you under a certain timeline in order to get there before something breaks or falls apart or goes under, right? Do you have the help that you need? Okay. How much time are you willing to invest? And of course, my timer, you guys, is time, money, energy, resources. How much of your timer are you willing to invest? So how much time are you willing to invest? How much money are you willing to invest? How much energy and what resources are you willing to invest in order to get to this other side of where you're at, which again, is kind of in this survival mode here, okay? How will you know when you get there? Is it all you imagined? Now that you're there, is it where you want to be, or is there more? Or is there a next step now that you can take that, a lot of times what we do is we look so far out into the future, or we think that we need to be working on things that are 10 steps ahead of what we need to be working on. And then we have to figure out how to pull ourselves back. So when you get to that point A, then you can assess it and be able to say, is it all that I imagined? Is there more to it? Okay. And then of course, what's next? And ultimately, what you want to do is you want to bring things down to the smallest denominator and bring things back to the smallest of units. All right. So in my coaching sessions, when she was asking me very hard questions, I wanted to be in denial. And as I was answering those questions honestly, I felt less than, I felt incompetent, I felt stupid, I felt vulnerable, I felt like I'm now being perceived by this person that I admire and probably admires me, but I feel like this person is going to judge me or look at me differently now that they know this truth. But ultimately, her intention was to be able to help me. Her intention was very clear, and she stated it at the very beginning, and she stated it throughout our conversation, that she was there to be able to help and support me. And I took this moment where I just kind of could feel my body going, okay, I know how to do this. It's not that I don't have the steps or the actions or the understanding or comprehension of knowing how to do these things. The problem is I'm just not doing them. So our coaches, a lot of times accountability coaches, yeah, they're not necessarily your teachers or your guides in life, but sometimes they can just be that accountability person to help you to get to where you want to go. And I think as a coach, I think based on what my clients share with me, that is where the value is in what I offer for my team, what I offer for my clients, what I offer when I'm working in the salon, is to hold people accountable to what they say they want without judgment or without having expectations that they're going to reach these destinations. Maybe it's one step, and now they need a little bit more support to get to the next step. Okay. Now, I got off that call with that coach, and the minute I knew that we weren't live and on Zoom anymore, I wrote down on a piece of paper in front of me, because she gave me some very distinct homework that I needed to do. And it's clever and it's fun. And I'm excited to be able to do it. But I got off the Zoom call and I said, that was really hard. It wasn't hard answering the questions. It was hard accepting that I just spoke my truth and I said it out loud. So now I've got some homework to do and I'm excited about it. And of course, I'll share with you guys as I progress into this homework, because she's literally going to help me get to the places that I want to go or the things that I want to have. And I'm excited about that. And I hope that you're excited about those opportunities as well. And if you need that kind of support, certainly, I certainly want to be the one to be able to help you. But I'm also one of those coaches that if I feel like I'm not a good fit or it's not in the wheelhouse that I'm within that you need, I am happy to refer you to my coaching friends that I think are fabulous and can help you to with what you need specifically. Okay. Now, I was also driving home yesterday and I was listening to talk radio. I have certainly reached that age where I am listening to talk radio. And I do enjoy it. I enjoy it because it gives me perspective. And right now, with how hard the world feels and how hard things feel to be doing right now, and I have my particular truth that I think is, well, that's the problem, right? And we think we're right in these assessments, saying these things, or we're fighting for our rights or our voice in all of it. But I listen to it because sometimes I need perspective. I need to hear how other people are aligning. Now, we like to say that we're only going to listen to things that are fit into our little boxes of what we believe, so that we can get reinforced or create the evidence that, yep, I was right. That's the truth. But I listen to a variety of different things from a perspective of, oh, why did I didn't think about that's how they felt about it. Now, I still may lean one way or the other, and that's my prerogative, right? That's my choice. But I heard this particular radio person say that when things feel really big and large in the world, and we think we can't make a difference, or we spend so much time on the national or global level of what we're doing, we don't realize that we can make a difference and an impact in a community level, a city level, a neighborhood level, a family level. And so when we can bring things down to their smallest denominator, it feels as though we can take the steps to get to where we want to go. When we also bring things back to the smallest of units, we can make a greater impact on our world and society through the small efforts that we're doing, raising our children, taking care of neighbors, participating in the community in ways that enhances the community, participating in ways that support, our nation, doing things that make a global difference. Okay. But again, we got to start small. We got to start very small, the smallest of units. And so it's you first. It's your dedication. It's your commitment. It's your voice. It's your speaking your truth and saying it out loud. And then it's also then aligning that with the people that you're closest to, and then figuring out ways to be able to bring that forward. All right. Send is, can be challenging, right? So we're 6 months into the year. Are you on track for your goals? Are you meeting your expectations? Are you aligning with them? Or at this point, are you denying them and maybe going back into shock of, hell, I can't make it happen. Just as soon as I get one step forward, I got to take 2 steps back. And if that's where you're at, I want you to definitely download my SOS strategy workbook. Okay. Yeah, it's geared towards a salon type of environment, but you could be any small business and still apply any of what I have on here. I just cater to the salon industry with it. But this is generic small business content and information. So if you go to www.sossalonstrategy.com, sossalonstrategy.com, it's a vanity link, so you need to put in the www in order to get to the proper location, or you can put in /SOS strategy PDF. If you go on there, you have the opportunity to be able to download this free workbook, and it'll just give you that sense of direction that you need to take with where your business is at. And it's based on the SOS framework of sales, operations, mindset, marketing, and education. And you look at those 5 areas to be able to assess where you're at. You can also take it as a personal level too. You can also look at it as personally where do you want to be from a personal brand standpoint. Either way, there's also an option on there that if you download that, you get a complimentary call with me, and I'd be happy to walk you through it. So if you're in that place of anxiety, if you don't feel like you can speak your truth and say it out loud, then I'm happy to work with you as a coach. I'm happy to give you this free consultation, this free session, strategy session, so that you can say these things out loud and see if that does make a difference for you to be inspired and passionate again towards what you're trying to achieve. All right. Thanks you guys for joining me. I look forward to seeing you very soon at the SOS Small Business Podcast and Salon Coaching. Bye for now.